I don't know if you had a chance to listen to the tribute that Winnie Odinga, the daughter, paid. And she said that even when she had or learned that Baba had decided that he wanted to be, interred within 72 hours, to her, she said she imagined, she could see him laughing. Even in death, he sort of had a plan already. Talk to us about this man who has been eulogized as someone who is selfless.
I'll talk about Raila, the selfless man. But I was smiling as Dr. Hesbon was responding to the question about the leaves because of how much enterprise people have had over the leaves. They were being sold at 100 bob in Nairobi.
Yeah.
And for me, it's not just the enterprise, but also the fact that Baba's supporters have remained in character even after his death. During the protests that he mobilized, they would give you whatever symbol that was being used as a protest. If it was a white hanky or a ribbon or whatever it is, and you would pay for it. And so, honestly, I don't know whether those resources were ever consolidated to come to the center of the campaign. I think most people are just making money for themselves. But it reminds me of a man whose life was feeding so many, sometimes even without his knowledge, And I think the fact that people are able to actually carry a symbol as simple as leaves, and someone was saying Nairobi is not going to have leaves for a very long time to come, for me is actually a sign that people wanted to associate with the life of this good gentleman. The former Prime Minister is a man who, and I'm glad I had the slur in my speech at the beginning and almost called him his father's name. It's because he carries a spirit that his father carried. His father escaped death for a very long time because it was believed he had some powers. Powers that are carried by very special Luo people who are able to predict the future, who are able to see into the future. Luos also believe in seers, and we normally visit them to speak to them about a lot of things, the rains, the harvest, all those things. And of course, the signs for changing leadership, changing seasons, etc. And so I believe, without a doubt, having worked next to this man politically for some time, I believe without a doubt that he had some of those powers. I believe that Baba had seen his death coming. And I believe that Baba had practically seen, even with visions, what was going to happen during his burial. In order to avoid a protracted period where this would continue for too long, in his wisdom, he made a decision that he wants to be buried in 72 hours. Now, he knew it was going to stress people out, especially because not everyone has the capacity to organize the funeral of a man like him within that short period of time, but he knew he was going to leave a task to everyone. But then I was reminded about the words of a friend of mine, Caspar Sitemba, who keeps on saying there's no use of living carelessly. You need to live with power, cause so much drama so that by the time you're leaving, you depart and people know that you have left. And I think demanding that he be buried within 72 hours is what Baba did to make sure that his burial will be dramatic. If we thought that because he had joined the government and therefore Gen Z he had lost the Gen Z and so he will not get any attention from Kenyans, he wanted to make sure that he compacts all of it within 72 hours. And he did marvelously in predicting that, because you've seen how that has gone. I'm also convinced now that we may have been very wrong about him having lost the admiration of the Gen Z. They were just not happy with the camp he was in. And so for me that has really stood out for me. He's a man who has decided he's not going to sacrifice the economy and the nation just because he has left. And he's also a man who has left his spirit in very many people. You will find people who are now standing up for what is right, standing up for integrity, standing up for anti-corruption, standing up for people-centered government, and many of them can trace back their philosophy of leadership and politics back to Baba. And then, of course, you'll find those who are pretending to agree with those ideals just so that they could get his support. And they are being exposed tremendously right now, because when they speak, you can tell that they did not carry his spirit. So this is something very interesting. I have also made a very critical observation that there are people who are around him and they did not have value, and he kept them there and elevated them and allowed them to stay on. In terms of being a selfless man, I think that for me is grand. The ability to raise someone hold their hand, knowing that there's nothing you're going to get from them. And then, of course, there are people who are around him who added value. And when you look at Baba, you would notice that he would reward them. And I must say that with a caveat, because, of course, there's the likes of the Honorable Babu, who may not necessarily have received the kind of reward that we expect him to be receiving. But you would notice that he would reward them and he would assign them responsibilities based on the talent that he saw. And sometimes he would actually remove himself out of situations so that these people would then take the position and represent him better than he would represent himself.
Yeah.
Even for young men like the Honorable Babu, I suspect Baba knew what he had planted in that young man. He gave him the responsibility of mobilizing for ODM severally around the nation. Your father, with all the wisdom he has and the ability to see the future 9 days before you see it, does not send you around the nation if he doesn't want you to build the kind of legitimacy that you would need to be a national leader.
Okay.
And so for me, it may look like Baba had abandoned Babu. It may look like he did not want to transfer power to Babu. But the truth is, he had done everything that he needed to prepare him, whether he was doing it by random accident, whether he was doing it by divine demand, and therefore there's nothing he could do to stop the growth of Babu, or whether he was doing it deliberately because he had already seen the star, and I suspect he had, is something that is left for him to whisper from his grave. The truth is, he's laughing at us. He's laughing at us for so many reasons. I know Baba to be a planner. I know him to think ahead. So if he did not organize the party, it's because he wanted these people to muscle these things out of each other's hands. Okay. And he hopes the best man will take it. I know he said he wants to be gone in 72 hours because he wanted to see us wriggle under the weight of planning his burial. And I agree with Winnie that the man is having a good chuckle even as he watches us trying to figure out what to do after he's gone, especially those of us who said, Baba aende nyumbani. Now we know that we were not even ready for him to go home.
Okay, and it's interesting what she's raising.